Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. We have a really fun show for you. We're going to be talking about the Magnesium Miracle. And we have Dr. Carolyn Dean here educating us about everything about magnesium. What is it, why it's important, how do you get it, what forms are good for you to take, and more. So welcome, Carolyn.
Oh, thank you. Good to be here, CJ. I love to talk about magnesium. It's my favorite mineral.
It is. Now, there are lots of other minerals aside from magnesium, right?
Oh, yeah. So if you consider what's in sea salt, there are 72 minerals.
Wow.
And, the way we treat our water these days, we have to filter the heck out of it, and we filter the minerals out of it as well. So
Ah.
people just aren't getting their minerals either from their water or from the soil. It's been depleted from the soil for 100 years.
Yeah, so why magnesium? Because there's like you said, salt has, hundreds of different
hmm
minerals in it. What's particular about magnesium that makes it the mineral that we should focus on?
Well, it does the most in the body.
Hmm.
Magnesium is necessary for the activation and function of 700 to 800 enzyme systems. The next closest is, I think it's zinc with around 180 enzyme
Mm.
systems that activate. So you can see the disparity there. And magnesium, it catalyzes most of the chemical reactions in the body. The most important one is the making of energy. So
Mm.
if you don't have energy, then your body is not making the ATP, adenosine triphosphate, for energy. There are 8 steps in making energy molecules in the
Hmm.
body.
Hmm.
6 of them require magnesium.
Wow. Okay, so I don't know about enzymes because I'm not a scientist. Sorry about that. And I don't know about, I understand the idea of energy. I understand energy, but tell me how it relates to the body and energy. So is it my energetic level and how much energy I have
Mm.
during a day, or is it more than that?
It's your actual muscle and nerve function that
Mm.
the energy to move your muscles, the energy
Ah.
to move your bronchial muscles, to breathe, just anything to do with how the muscles and nerves act in the body requires energy. And in terms of enzyme systems, they're not digestive enzymes. That's not
Hmm.
what I mean, but
Hmm.
it's the biochemical reactions. When anything happens in the body, it has to be done by biochemistry.
Hmm.
And for the biochemistry to proceed from one step to the next, you require what we call coenzymes or cofactors.
Hmm.
And these are the vitamins and minerals. In medical school, we never learned about vitamins and minerals in this way
Hmm.
to apply clinically. And
Hmm.
you'll hear that a lot. There's no
Hmm.
nutrition in medical schools, but in biochemistry, believe me, I had 200 hours of biochemistry, and it's all there in the charts. Every biochemical function in the body that detoxifies um, drugs or poisons in the body requires enzyme. Everything that goes on. So,
Ah.
we've got the production of protein. It
Hmm.
goes step by step to produce protein. That requires magnesium. You've got, and as I mentioned, anything to do with nerves and muscles. But
Right.
here's the key thing about muscles: calcium contracts muscles in the body, and magnesium relaxes them. So if mm,
Ah, interesting. Okay, so I know that you have a big chapter in your book about calcium, and I didn't understand why, but I get it because what you said in your book is that we're a calcium rich and probably overindulgent calcium society. So we're
mhm,
getting all tight but not relaxed, right? Because we're probably
exactly
magnesium deficient and calcium rich. I get it now.
correct.
I get
Correct.
it. And
So when the
there's
focus is on calcium without enough magnesium, the muscles and the nerves will keep firing and contracting and firing and contracting and give us the irritability or the muscle tension
ah.
or the heart pain or the blood pressure. The even
I get
muscles
it.
in your little smooth muscles, they call them, in the blood vessels. when they contract into a little ball, they'll tighten up the blood vessels and cause you to have high blood pressure.
Ah, I get it. So that's why a lot of, you have these 56 conditions associated with magnesium deficiency. That's why
Hmm.
these things, because so many of them are, our body is in stress because we're constantly like, our muscles are tight and overworking because we're calcium rich and we have nothing to kind of relax the muscle. So there's a out of balance scenario.
Right.
I get
And
it.
being tight like that, you can't sleep. If you're
Yes.
tight, wound up, like a spring or a piece of wood, and you're lying there all tense, you cannot get into a deep, relaxed sleep.
Ah.
So people will be, they'll think maybe they're sleeping a little bit, but they'll wake up tired and irritable, and they'll wonder why. Or they're waking up all the time. Any little noise bothers them because they're in a very light stage
Hmm.
of sleep, not a deep stage of sleep. So you start losing your sleep, and then you do start losing your health.
Ah, okay. So magnesium and sleep, there's a correlation between the two. When people take magnesium, what happens with their sleep? Because they're able to relax more and the things that you mentioned, but what happens that you've noticed with your clients?
Well, they just start sleeping better right
Yeah.
away. I mean, people can take a couple of doses of magnesium and feel that they get their first good night's sleep in years. I've heard that over and
Wow. So
over
like
again.
they take it immediately and get an immediate effect with their sleep?
Right, right, because it goes straight to the muscles and calms
Mm,
them down. I've given people a dose of magnesium while they have an eye twitch or some sort of facial twitch,
right.
and they'll take the magnesium and within minutes it's gone.
Wow.
So it is very. I mean, in that sense, it's like kind of like a drug taking away a
Yeah.
symptom,
Yeah.
but then you have, as you said, mentioned 37. Well, there are 100 factors that can create a magnesium deficiency,
Hmm.
and for some people, I mean, they can start at birth. They can start with a mother who had eclampsia or blood
Hmm.
pressure or seizures during the pregnancy, and that means she was magnesium deficient. So a child can be born with magnesium
Wow.
deficiency,
Wow.
and then what will they get? They can get asthma because the smooth muscles of the bronchial tubes go into spasm. And instead of thinking, well, this is a magnesium deficiency, oh, well, we have to give you drugs to suppress those symptoms.
Right.
And then a child can develop cramping anywhere in the body, and they call it, oh, that's just growing pains, or
Right.
stomach
Oh.
cramping. Oh,
Hmm.
they're just upset or they're stressed or they ate too much. They never look at magnesium deficiency. And then kids these days are pushed to be athletic. Well, they sweat out a lot of magnesium
Minerals,
when they're
yeah.
doing when
Yeah.
and other minerals too, but the replacement is usually just with salt, sodium, and sugar. And actually, LeBron James in the first game of the NBA's this year, he was taken off the court with muscle cramps, and I wrote a big blog saying LeBron James has magnesium deficiency. And and when I read about what they were doing to him or with him
Oh,
and
yeah.
the other athletes for their cramping, because a lot of people have it,
Yeah.
80% of the population is
Right.
magnesium deficient. So what they do is give six 6 to 8 bottles of 20-ounce Gatorade.
Right. Which has, I
Gatorade,
don't even,
I
it's
think,
sugar basically.
totally. I mean, 60 grams of sugar is being put into
Uh,
these
but they
people.
do things like
And
in Epsom salts. That's actually a way to replenish. Like a lot of athletes
absolutely,
do that,
yeah.
right? I mean, they hopefully they're doing that to LeBron as
Hopefully,
well,
hopefully.
as
I
well.
know I see him in pictures drinking his Gatorade, so he's
Yeah, you're
probably
like,
something going.
stop it. Just send him a bottle of your pills. What is it?
Right.
Just take these pills. You'll feel so much better. Okay, well
Mm.
that's really interesting. So it affects sleep. And then I've noticed another things that people were typing up in the internet. It's great for constipation. It's great for anxiety. and it's great for migraines. Tell us a little bit about why that works. I get that it's about relaxation of the muscles, but what specifically about constipation, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and migraines?
Well, constipation, it can be from the intestinal smooth muscles being in such contraction that they don't very gently move the intestinal contents along. You're
Ah,
seized up and you're tight. So if
right.
you're tight in your bowels, then everything's tight. It's like you just imagine holding, your anal sphincter tight. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's reverberated all through your intestines when you're low in magnesium.
I see.
And some people think that magnesium is a laxative, and there are definitely forms of magnesium that are a laxative. In fact, that's what most doctors think. Oh, magnesium, yeah, we give 3,000 milligrams to purge people before a colonoscopy.
Yes.
They use it as a bowel prep. Well,
Right.
3,000 milligrams, that's like 10 times a daily amount that or the RDA even. So anyway,
It's like a nuclear bomb in your poor, your
yes,
poor
yes,
intestinal
yes.
tracts. Um,
But let me tell you that reaction is actually the fail-safe of magnesium, because if you ever take quote unquote too much, or if you take a whole bunch at once, the body's just going to get rid of it.
right,
It's
to be a
going to be
diarrhea, right? That's basically how.
right.
So that, and that's one of the most interesting things about, because people were asking about dosages, and you talk about in the Magnesium Miracle in your book, you talk about dosages, and there really isn't too much that you can take because your body will just expel it out. So you don't have to worry about overdosing, which I thought was interesting.
Right, and it's interesting because I have my personal problem with my heart arrhythmias and leg cramps,
Uh-huh.
but I also have a bit of IBS, irritable bowel syndrome.
Uh-huh.
So I can't take much of any type of magnesium by mouth without getting the laxative effect.
Oh.
Yet my heart is still, palpitating away. So the
Oh, right.
laxative effect does not mean you've had enough if you have a certain bowel sensitivity. So
Ah, right.
yeah,
Right.
this is the huge dilemma now facing us in magnesium therapy. And I actually just before we talked, I wrote a blog into my website, the drcarolyndean.com website, and it is about the therapeutic levels of magnesium treat migraines. So we can talk about migraines too.
Yeah.
But in there, I mentioned about a magnesium think tank that I went to last weekend on the
Mm-hmm.
mainland,
Mm-hmm.
and there were only about a dozen magnesium experts and researchers from all over the world, and they still just focus on magnesium oxide as the magnesium that they study and that they personally take. Magnesium oxide is only 4% absorbed.
Oh, wow.
96% of it, 96% of it gets blown out through the
Oh,
intestines.
brother.
Yeah. So we've got, well, this is why I really appreciate doing your show to get this information out there, because we've got a real problem when the magnesium researchers themselves are giving out the wrong magnesium.
Right, that's one form of magnesium. Now, there's all sorts of different forms of magnesium. There's citrate, sulfate,
Citrate.
chloride, citrate, excuse me, malate, different forms like oils and sprays, chelate, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't, these are things I'm probably totally mispronouncing, sorry. But so tell me what, and it seemed from reading your book, The Magnesium Miracle, is that, all forms are okay. There's probably certain forms, like you're saying, if you have IBS, don't take the oxide because, or is there certain
Mm-hmm.
forms for different types of situations? But what's your opinion on the best form of magnesium to take and what form you should take it in?
Right. Well, I guess I pull back even a little more from that, and I
Okay.
tell people to get their magnesium levels tested in their blood.
Mm-hmm.
So I send people to an online site. I have nothing to do with them, but I appreciate what they're doing. It's called requestatest.com. And for $49, you can get a magnesium RBC, which means red blood cell, blood test. And that test can tell you what your levels are. But even then, CJ, the problem is that the range of levels for this blood test and laboratory blood tests in general is from the sick population. It's from the population that goes to the lab, and they just average it out. So what I further have to say, and I do say this in a free ebook, people can get at my website, which this website is RNA Reset, RESET.com. They're free ebooks because I have to educate people. So what happens is if you have a range of from 4.2 to 6.8 of this magnesium RBC, well, you want to be at 6. You don't want to be down at 4.
6.0? 6.0?
Correct.
Okay, got
Correct.
it. Okay. Wow. Okay,
and
good.
that puts you like in what we say in the 80th percentile, so that, as I said, 80% of the population is deficient. Well, you want to be up there with the 20% who aren't deficient, which
Right.
means you want to be in the high level. So it's very much a stretch for people because people have to take their health into their own hands because doctors are used to just doing a serum magnesium test. And as I say in the book, only 1% of the total body magnesium is in the serum. So it's not a good measure.
Right.
And that serum, perfuses the heart, and the body always tries to keep the serum magnesium at a good level to protect the heart.
Okay, I have two follow-up questions. One is going back to the question about the form then, because I know that what you're saying is get tested so that you actually know if you are magnesium deficient, and most likely you are. You're probably that 80%. But I assume that test actually gives you information about how deficient you are so that you know how many milligrams and how many pills you should take. Is that what the benefit of the test is?
Yes, the benefit of the test is if you're at 4, then you have to get the types of magnesium that will be therapeutic without being laxative. If you're already okay, then you can do an Epsom salts bath. You can take a pill or two, even of a magnesium oxide, and you'll probably be okay. But I guess in my consulting practice, I see people who have a lot of problems. They're on a lot of medications, and most of the medications they're on are because they're magnesium deficient, and they don't realize it.
Right.
So I have to be very careful. I want to get a baseline blood test, and then
Right.
every 3 months they repeat the blood test and see how they're doing, and find their symptoms are going away and they don't need their medications. Here's the scenario of the 60 to 70-year-old population. They're under stress and they're already magnesium deficient, but something extra stressful happens and they go to the doctor just to, get a checkup, and their blood pressure is elevated. Now, most people going to a doctor these days, they have the white coat syndrome anyway,
Right.
where the blood pressure will be elevated. And the doctor having, a 7-minute appointment with you, just, here's blood pressure is elevated. Good, I can give you a diuretic and you'll go away, and then I can see the next patient.
Right.
So you end up on a diuretic, which is a water pill, which they say, drain some of the water out to take the pressure off your blood vessels. Well, your blood vessels are pressured and tight because the smooth muscle around your blood vessels is all contracted and makes that pipe tighter. So instead of giving you magnesium, you've got this diuretic. So what's going to happen? Well, you're going to lose more magnesium.
Right. So in fact, you're actually worsening the original problem that you had because the doctor misdiagnosed the symptom. They listened to the symptoms and misdiagnosed the cure, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you go back after a month to make sure it's working, and no, it's not working. Your blood pressure's worse.
Right.
And the doctor will actually say, we caught your blood pressure just in time, as if, it was lurking in the background.
Right.
And diuretic isn't enough, so they put you on 2 more blood pressure drugs.
Wow.
One is usually a calcium channel blocker. Now, they got that part right because, yes, that you have to block the tightening contraction of the calcium, but they don't stop to think that magnesium is a natural calcium channel blocker.
Right.
So you go home on 3 drugs. You come back in another 2 months to have your blood tested to make sure the drugs aren't harming your liver too much. And lo and behold, your cholesterol is elevated on the blood test and your blood sugar is elevated on the blood test. Both of those conditions are caused by magnesium deficiency.
Right. So again, you're on a cascade of pills that you
Hmm.
could have been avoided by taking one pill, which is magnesium. And
Right.
in fact, all these medicines are worsening the root cause, which is a magnesium deficit.
Correct.
That's awful. I
So,
feel so sorry for people in their 60s or 70s that don't
right,
know.
right.
Well, okay, so let's say that you aren't having a cascade of these problems and you just say, well, maybe I should just take magnesium because probabilistically I'm that 80%. Is there a certain minimum? Because as I read through your book, The Magnesium Miracle, it seemed like you're actually building, a certain store of magnesium. So is there a harm or risk of just taking a couple of tablets or, whatever? What's this least amount that you can take to just say, hey, I don't know if I have magnesium deficit. I probably do. What would you take to?
Well, everybody is different, and I've tried to come about, around this question in a number of ways. And one of my blogs, and actually I probably put it in my Magnesium Miracle book, is I have 100 factors that help you gauge magnesium deficiency.
Mhm.
And by going through them, you realize where you may fit. For example, more than 7 drinks of alcohol a week
Right,
will deplete your magnesium.
right,
If you're angry, if you have angina or anxiety or even apathy, a heart arrhythmia, asthma, and that's just the age. If you have constipation, as we mentioned, but even diarrhea or IBS or
right.
Crohn's and colitis or bronchitis, if you drink more than 3 servings a day of caffeine, if you have chronic fatigue, if you have cold extremities, it just goes on. Diabetes, in the
Right.
medical text, one of the signs of diabetes is low magnesium,
Yeah.
but nobody ever looks for it. So
Yeah.
there's so many reasons.
Yeah,
So
there are
what
56
people,
in here. Acid reflux,
right?
adrenaline fatigue, Alzheimer's, and
Mm-hmm.
angina, panic attacks, arthritis, asthma, blood clots, bowel disease. So, I mean, any of these things. So before you go to the doctor, if you have cholesterol elevation or
Mm-hmm.
depression, you would say, "Ha, maybe I have a magnesium deficit. This is how I would know." I mean, if I'm presenting any of these, in your book you have 56, but I'm sure, like you said, you have 100 in your blog. But if you're presenting these, then you go, I may have a magnesium deficiency. Is that right?
Right, you may have, and what I say to people is just start taking some magnesium and see how you feel. Insomnia is a a big symptom for magnesium deficiency, and it's very common.
Right.
So I'll start there, and I'll say, well, if you have insomnia, you wake up in the night, then start taking some magnesium. You can take it through the day, or you can just take it at bedtime. And if people say, well, it helped a little bit, but not totally, and I say, just take more.
Right. So I
It's an
think in your
indication.
book you said 300 milligrams. Like, how much am I supposed to be taking? What's the initial amount that I should start off with before adding more?
And that depends too, because some magnesiums are so poorly absorbed. You might start with the whole 300 milligrams, but
Right.
if it's magnesium oxide, even that 300 can give a sensitive person a laxative effect.
Ah.
Where I start with people is Epsom salt baths or foot baths.
Yeah.
Get 1 or 2 cups of Epsom salts, put them in a bath, and see how it affects you. People will feel relaxed. Uh, Children, we do this in children with ADHD or autism, and they actually start having better bowel movements. They're notoriously constipated,
Right.
so their bowels start relaxing a bit, and they
Right.
sleep better, and they stop being so irritated and
Right.
irritable.
Right. So start off with the Epsom bath, and if that ends up being like Epsom bath is a little bit more inconvenient than, let's say, taking a pill.
True, true,
Are
true,
there
true.
certain pills that you'd recommend to take?
Well, there's the magnesium citrates are the kind of the next level of.
Mm-hmm.
There's a good magnesium citrate powder. You can put that in water
Mm-hmm.
and drink that. But you can also put it in a liter of water and drink it through the day. But
Mm-hmm.
that's still, in me, it still has a laxative effect.
Uh,
And as you mentioned earlier, yes, I do have my own product. I don't know if you permit me to
yes.
talk
Yeah,
about it.
Remag, REMAG.
Right. And what happened there is because of my huge, incredible sensitivity to magnesium, because I wanted to treat myself, I finally got a chemist to create a type of magnesium that's what I call picometer in size, which means it's like a billionth of a meter. It's the same size as the the root hairs in a plant that absorb magnesium.
Right, okay.
Magnesium in plants is size dependent. You can't get into a plant unless you're tiny enough to then, when it's digested in a human or animal, to get into the cells, because
Mm-hmm.
the cells that allow minerals to go inside are picometer in diameter.
Right.
So when people are taking a lot of what I call dirt minerals, those minerals, somehow the body has to break them down and ionize them and deal with them. That's why there's so little absorption. But
I
when
see.
something that's already broken down to the size the cells want, it goes right into the cells.
Uh,
And by going into the cells, it will not cause a laxative effect. There's none left over
uh,
to get into the intestines.
unless you're appreciating the laxative effect and then maybe get one of these other ones. So you have natural calm and jigsaw
Mhm.
magnesium, SRT, and ancient
Mhm.
minerals magnesium oil. These are some
Mhm.
other ones that you recommend. How did you go about recommending these? I know natural calm is the one that you mentioned. It must be the citrate that you match with
That's right.
water.
Well, I've been around the magnesium world for since the mid '90s, so I know all the products and I know all the people, and each of those products has a role. Natural Calm is the most widely used magnesium, and it's sweetened with organic stevia,
Mm-hmm.
and you can mix it in water and sip it through the day, and a lot of people benefit from it, and it can help with a bit of a laxative effect.
Mm-hmm.
The jigsaw magnesium is a dimagnesium malate, and they say it's time release, and to slowly get it into the body is
Is that what
helpful. Just like,
chelated means? It's time. Is that what that means?
not really. What
Okay.
it's chelated just means that it's bound to a compound that somehow supplement companies felt that that's what the body does.
Mm-hmm.
It binds magnesium to something to help its absorption,
Uh-huh.
but it's kind of vague. And when I asked a person who worked with chelated supplement magnesium, I should say, he said it may help the absorption, 5 or 10%, but it's not the answer.
Okay.
I mean, I did try them all. I had magnesium oil slathered on my body, and it just
Yes.
caused itching and rashes because I had to use so much to get
Yes.
therapeutic levels. So I think it's because of the complexity of my symptoms and then the
Right.
types of
Yeah, but
clients and
try it.
patients
Yeah.
I have. I
Well,
had to
I
find
like the idea
something.
of like that, if you have a sprain or strain, spray some magnesium on it, versus taking, an Epsom bath is kind of an ordeal. For me, the biggest is
Hmm.
cleaning my bathtub. But beyond that, I think
Yeah.
it's an ordeal. So, but if you could actually get a little ancient minerals magnesium oil to just spray on the parts that are painful, you just have a direct absorption from your skin into the specific areas. That kind of seemed brilliant to me.
Yes, it was a great way to go, but then when somebody needs, 200 sprays a day,
Oh,
it gets to be a little bit much.
okay.
In order to get the therapeutic levels, I mean, I guess this is what I really hit me like a ton of bricks when I was at this think tank this weekend.
Hmm.
Is nobody's talking about therapeutic magnesium.
Hmm.
We're all fighting just for magnesium to be recognized, period. But
Hmm.
the next problem is if all the doctors are giving magnesium oxide. I have patients who have severe magnesium deficiencies, and their doctors keep prescribing magnesium oxide, and as
Right.
they say, it tears their intestines apart.
Right. So
And when you have that,
therapeutic
hmm
magnesium then would be a magnesium that you could take that wouldn't have these kind of awful effects on your intestines and such. It would be
correct.
increasing your magnesium to the levels that you need, which sounds like a lot, if you're really deficient, but there's nothing out there really that you could get a big boost of magnesium. Is that what you mean?
Correct. I mean, I used to think it was intravenous magnesium, but I mean,
Oh,
that's horribly
that sounds
expensive.
awful too.
Yeah, it's horribly expensive, but that's what the doctors go to. When the magnesium
Wow.
oxide doesn't work, they go to IV
Oh
magnesium. So
no.
I've had the opportunity to work with a number of people who have had to take IV magnesium 3 and 4 times a week. This one gentleman for 7 years, and he would periodically have his indwelling intravenous line in his arm get infected or get blood clots.
Right.
And
Poor guy.
I have his testimonial. He started taking Remag, and within a week, his serum magnesium levels doubled because he was
Wow.
able to take some every day, and he was able to take a goodly amount of it, not cause the colitis that the oral forms had caused. So yes, it is really about doing therapeutic magnesium, and as I say in today's blog about therapeutic levels of magnesium treat migraines, then I talk about a Dr. Moskop who he's a neurologist and a headache specialist, and he wrote a paper most recently, and it's a great title. Why all migraine patients should be treated with magnesium. I mean, he's totally convinced. He used to be a skeptic, and now he's a fanatic about magnesium. Well, he's got a headache product or a migraine product, and it's got magnesium. And what is it? 75 milligrams of magnesium
Oh,
oxide
that's not enough. Okay, so
and aspirin. I mean, even you know that's not enough,
no,
and you
I
just
know. Okay, and it's interesting because in your book you actually mention combine if you have migraine, combining it with a feverfew and I can't remember another set of herbs because a girlfriend of mine has actually really bad migraines, and I said, oh, here's what Dr. Dean said about. What, so you actually have it combined with a couple other supplements as well, right? I mean, if you were to make this product, you would have it slightly different, right? What would you add
Well,
in?
what's happened is since I wrote about magnesium and feverfew and B6 being important for migraines, um, when you use the Remag and it gets directly into the cells and it bumps out the excess calcium and the toxins and whatever, for most people the Remag is enough. The
Oh, they don't have to
proper
take the other stuff.
therapeutic
Huh.
magnesium is enough. But I also work with the methylated B vitamins in a formula I have for detox called Realign. So, and there's more to it. I start off with magnesium. I tell people we talked about sea salt at one point, I think, and sea salt has 72 minerals. So I tell people, look, your water is empty, empty, empty of everything, including minerals. So just put a pinch of sea salt and work up to maybe an eighth to a quarter teaspoon in a liter of water,
Right.
and you'll find that that's helpful.
Huh.
And I
Interesting.
also have a multiple mineral that I wish I could give LeBron James for because it's not just magnesium we're lacking. It's listen to this, CJ. 9 minerals are required for proper thyroid function. And we're lucky if we hear about iodine because allopathic doctors, they've been told that iodine is unsafe for people with thyroid. My gosh, the iodine molecule is necessary in thyroid hormone production.
Right.
And it's also necessary is selenium and manganese and copper and magnesium and zinc. And what we do instead is all of us in allopathic and natural medicine, we wait for the thyroid to get totally punked out, and then we give thyroid hormone replacement.
Right. Awful.
And
Where,
but that's at the end of
right,
the
just
road.
yeah, exactly. You should have just been, taking a little bit of sea salt in your
Hmm.
food. I mean, sea salt on your food tastes delicious. I mean, why? Just
Hmm.
okay. So we talked about migraines, and so what's happening
Mm.
with the migraines is again, I assume it's the muscle tension and it's just the relaxing of the muscles. Is that why it works for migraines so well?
Well, migraines are, there's more to it. There's a possibility that the neurotransmitters are affected,
Hmm.
and magnesium just happens to balance those neurotransmitters. There's in my book, I have a whole chapter on migraines and pain, and I write it out. You know that there are about 7 different ways that magnesium can help treat migraines. So
Hmm.
it's not just as a painkiller. I mean, that's what most people would think,
Hmm.
but it balances certain hormones. It helps the adrenal glands. It helps the serotonin in the brain. It does so much.
Wow, interesting. And then what about seems like I saw a lot of people curious about magnesium for anxiety. So
Oh my
it's
gosh.
yeah,
Hmm.
and
Well, this is
depression. How does that
huge.
work? Yeah.
I talked about my 60-year-old patients. Well, I've got a whole slew of, I call them my 30-year-old patients, and and they come to me with the anxiety picture.
Hmm.
Huge problems with long-term anxiety, being treated with anti-anxiety medications and sleeping pills. And when you look at the benzodiazepine medications for sleep and for anxiety, they say on the label, on the little tiny insert, for short-term use only, which is 2 weeks.
Oh no, my girlfriends when I was 30, they were taking them every day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Exactly. It seems to be the pill of choice for the 30
Yes.
year old. So
Yes.
they end up on them, as some of my patients, for 10, 12, 15 years.
Oh.
And then, they realize that, well, oh, duh, this isn't helping. Or with the information about magnesium becoming more widespread, they start thinking, oh my gosh, every symptom I have is a magnesium deficiency, because they have anxiety, but then they'll also have all those other symptoms that go along with it, like leg twitching, heart palpitations,
Ah,
their
interesting.
insomnia, and they begin to twig to the fact that, oh my gosh, this may be magnesium deficiency. And they read my book and they start taking magnesium, and if they do it right, slowly introducing magnesium into a magnesium deficient body is important, because if you've been deficient in magnesium for a decade,
Hmm.
then you don't want to just slam your body with this high octane solution, which can just stir you up.
But I understand that you can't even, right? Because your body will dispel it anyways, right? I mean, if your body will only
Well,
take what it needs.
no, in the midst of all that, they can get stirred up. Someone who's
Uh,
anxious, who has this heart sensitivity, in
mm,
terms of they've had some heart palpitations, you can take a big dose of magnesium, and before it reaches your bowels, before it's either urinated out or goes out through
ah,
your bowels, it can stir you up. I have a blog, and it's in my one of my ebooks on my RNA Reset website, called "When Magnesium Makes Me Worse."
okay, okay,
Because when people take something natural, they think, oh, it's perfectly safe. I'll just
right.
1 tablet. Oh no, I'll take 3. And then they get freaked out that, oh my gosh,
My
this
heart's
this
beating fast. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Ah,
And I equate it with something like sitting in a theater with your arm over the seat of your girlfriend or boyfriend, and your arm goes numb. And
yeah.
then when you take the arm out, it starts tingling and feeling really bad as it's waking up. Your body's waking up,
Right. Yeah, I mean it's like
and
any drug withdrawal, right? Your body is
mhm,
like, or I mean it's anything that your body is going through for withdrawing
mhm,
from those
mhm.
cases. So it helps with anxiety. And what is it doing for anxiety? What specific, like you're saying for migraines, there's a whole bunch of different hormones and things.
Right.
Similar for anxiety or different?
Well, for anxiety, it seems to work through the adrenal glands. Because when someone is in a constant state of hypervigilance or fight or flight, it's a type of person you can say boo and they'll jump sky
Yeah.
high.
Yes.
Well, the adrenal glands are trigger happy, and at a snap of the fingers, they'll flood the body with adrenaline. That adrenaline
Yes.
surge where your hair stands on end and you break out into a sweat or you feel prickly all over. Well, people with anxiety are doing that all the time. And what's happened is without the proper amount of magnesium in the adrenal glands, the adrenals do get trigger happy. And as soon as they have enough adrenaline, they'll just fire it out. And you won't even know sometimes. But it can start very innocuously, like
Right.
if your blood sugar goes low, then your adrenals have to push some adrenaline out to get your sugar stores in your liver pushed into the blood, so you don't faint, fall over and
Right.
faint.
Right. So
So
it kind of not locks down. You're always on, right? Your flight or flight is always on
right,
or
right,
easily triggered. So the
right.
magnesium helps balance that out.
It totally helps balance that out, and also sodium is important. So you've got too many people avoiding salt because they hear it's bad for you. But I get people, as I said, on the sea salt. So I get them on sea salt water, the Remag magnesium, and slowly build up their magnesium, and all their symptoms start going away. And the reason why people will consult with me is because they're taking other forms of magnesium, and then they'll get the laxative effect. So they'll stop,
I see.
and then when they stop it, their symptoms just rush back, with a vengeance, and they almost feel worse
Wow.
because you have opened up those 700, 800 magnesium pathways, and now you've deprived them
Yeah,
of
what's
this
going
little,
on? They're unhappy.
yeah, total
Okay.
withdrawal.
But
Yeah.
I thought in your book, maybe I misunderstood it. I thought you build up stores of magnesium. Can't it feed off the stores of magnesium that you've built up in your body? Or is because you're so deficient, there's no stores to build up off, to feed
No
off of?
stores.
Okay.
There are no
There
stores.
are no
The
stores. Okay.
Right. The stores have all been used up to keep your serum magnesium looking decent enough to keep your heart functioning. And that's why even in the midst of really low magnesium in your cells, your serum can look okay on a blood test to a doctor, and that's why they stopped doing the blood test. If you go for electrolyte testing these days, it's just calcium, chloride, what's the other? Sodium,
Right.
potassium, but they never test for magnesium. And here I am saying it's the most crucial mineral in
Mineral
the
of
whole
to
body.
test. I think that's amazing. Well,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about food because some people like I'm eating, like you said, you can eat sea salt, have a little bit of sea salt in your water as kind of an initial entree into this, but aren't there foods with magnesium in them too, or is it what you said earlier that our soil is so deficient of magnesium that there's very little in our food?
Exactly. 100 years ago, we were able to get 500 milligrams of magnesium in our diet, and now we're
Wow.
lucky to get 200.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
but are there so there's no way, even if we're like, hey, I'm eating magnesium rich foods, probably can't get the amount that you really need.
Right. I mean, the big ones are kelp and wheat bran, wheat germ, nuts and seeds are high. And, I can give out this list. It's on my blogs and in my books. But if the soil is depleted, they're just not going to be even in those good sources. But
Right.
kelp will often still be high because seawater has 3 times the
Right.
magnesium as it does calcium. So
Right.
it's great. But here's my story about food.
Uh-huh.
I've consulted with people who've been on this crazy 140 ounces of green drink a day will, save your life or
Yeah.
whatever. And they've come to me with heart palpitations and leg cramps. And I put them on Remag and Relight, and within a day they're telling me the cramps and heart palpitations are gone. And they're angry actually because they say, well, that's not possible. I'm eating drinking all this green stuff. That's just not possible. And I said, well, if your even organic farmer does not put magnesium back in the soil, you are not going to have it in those greens. And farmers are not putting minerals in the soil.
Ah, interesting. So actually they have to put minerals in the soil? I had no
Right.
idea.
Well, it's in one place in the book I talk about the way we used to get minerals was in the mountains
Hmm.
with the ice melt in the spring.
Right.
The ice would scrape the rocks and powder them down, and then by the time the streams got to the ocean and with the valley and flooded the valleys with this mineral-rich water that sometimes could look milky with so much minerals.
Hmm.
The floodplains would be then where you'd plant your crops.
Hmm.
Are we doing that anymore? No,
No, not at all. Oh,
not at all.
interesting. Right, right. Now there are all these just gigantic farms where it's kind of rows and rows sprayed with water.
Hmm.
Interesting. Okay, I have a last question about statin. Statin, is that what it's called? Because
Statin.
cholesterol, statin. And you say in your book, gosh, there's 6 natural things that I would do before taking statin. And my poor dear husband and a lot of other people out there are getting prescriptions written on, and this is what it's like the 14th, I think, in your book or some other book. I read it's the 14th most prescribed medicine. Um, what don't we know about cholesterol and how could magnesium help?
Well, what's interesting there is the enzyme system that balances cholesterol in the body requires magnesium. And balancing
Oh,
means, yeah, if the cholesterol is high, then magnesium will help this enzyme um, break down the cholesterol. If the cholesterol is low, magnesium will help build up the cholesterol. When I was in medical school in the mid 70s, the average cholesterol was 240, and nobody batted an eye, and people weren't dropping like flies. But now they're trying to tell us that cholesterol should be 200. Oh, it's even better if it's 180. And it's ridiculous because alongside of taking these statin drugs, which kill your cholesterol, men need Viagra in order to be potent because the hormones are all destroyed because you don't have enough cholesterol to make hormones. I know
oh,
that was
that's
a big
interesting. Oh my gosh,
that
so
was
you
a big
take your
mouthful.
cholesterol, oh, so you take the cholesterol medicine, you've tanked your hormones, and now you have to take Viagra. Is that what it
Right.
is? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
exactly. And the huge fad now is to put men on testosterone
Right.
because their testosterone is shot because of statin drugs. And the other thing about cholesterol that I say in the cholesterol and the statins and everything is that several of the statin drugs are fluoride compounds, which means many years ago they've drug companies found that putting fluoride into a drug molecule would make it stronger in that it was able to dissolve itself into fats and cross cell membranes and have access to the brain as well as into the cells. So they made a lot of the common drugs into fluoride drugs. Fluoride binds magnesium. Fluoride that means steals magnesium from the body, whether
Oh
you're
gosh,
using
you're
it.
making the worst situation even worse. So if you have cholesterol, as I understand it, that magnesium is the thing that balances out. Then you actually
Mhm.
have these meds that are actually fluoride based, so they're kind of zapping the benefits that the little magnesium that you've had could actually
Mhm.
give you. Oh my! And
Right.
then you have to take Viagra. That's
And
just
then you have to take
awful.
Viagra, and the other fluoride drugs that people might be interested in are there's the antibiotic Cipro.
Uh
It
huh.
has a
Yes.
one fluoride molecule, and its
Yes.
side effects. There are 126 side effects with Cipro, and they include muscle pain, tendon rupture, and atrial fibrillation.
Right.
All magnesium deficiency symptoms.
Wow. Interesting.
Prozac has 3 fluorides. Paxil has one. Flecainide, I'll get this, CJ. It's an anti-arrhythmia drug, and it has 6 fluoride molecules. So a drug you're taking to stop arrhythmias, which are caused by magnesium deficiency, is definitely going to bind up a lot of magnesium. And the side effects of this antiarrhythmia drug are fast, irregular pounding, racing heartbeat, shortness of breath, and nerve symptoms of burning, crawling, itching, numbness, pins and needles, all magnesium deficiency.
So what I'm hearing, though, is a lot of your clients come in presenting these kind of things, and you'll say, you're presenting, the one out of the 100 or several hundred, several things out of your list of 100 deficiencies, and you'll say, I think it's a magnesium deficit. And then when they take the magnesium, it seems like they'd be able to unwind from their current, litany of medications that they're taking. Is that what you're finding?
Oh, absolutely. And, since I've really been focused on getting the right therapeutic levels, it is quite amazing how people, I get them to stay on their drugs. I do not take people off their drugs. They can work on that with their doctors. I'm just on the telephone with them. But I say stay on your drugs, but start taking magnesium. As you're feeling better, as your blood pressure improves, and before it gets too low, check with your doctor and wean off some of your medications because you don't need them anymore.
Yes,
because the magnesium is helping to sort things out.
Yeah. Let me go back to cholesterol because again, my husband was told to take cholesterol statin. And you suggest in your book that there's 6 other natural remedies. What else would you do if you had? He's actually on the borderline. I think he's probably 200 or whatever the recommendation is.
See, look what I said a minute ago, CJ. Back in the mid-70s,
no one cared, right?
It was normal,
right?
So, unfortunately, doctors who see a 201 will say, "Oh, you better take statins."
Right.
Before treating, you don't have to treat a 200 or 210.
Right.
What you do is you Google the side effects of statins and see if you're developing those. You Google things like cholesterol myths, or get Dr. Stephen Sinatra's book about the fact that cholesterol elevation is now being looked upon as just is not even a cause of heart disease.
Right.
It was just a side issue. And here's what happened. I think I write it in one of my books where some researchers took laboratory grade cholesterol, which was rancid, gave it to some rabbits, which don't even mimic human physiology, and those rabbits developed atherosclerosis and hardening of the arteries. So that they extrapolated hugely and erroneously with a rancid cholesterol on the wrong animal model to humans, so that the margarine industry could make a lot of money by telling people to avoid butter.
Wow. Oh my God. That's just awful. So so it seems like with cholesterol, at least, a lot of it can be done by diet. Some of it can be done by magnesium, right? Because as I understand it, if you take magnesium, wait, how does magnesium again relate to the cholesterol? Tell me again.
It activates the enzyme that helps break down cholesterol and get rid of it.
Ah, right. So
it's
a natural statin, right?
Yeah. And with cholesterol, there can be familial cholesterol.
Yes.
I have it because my mother had high cholesterol.
Yes.
But I control mine with my magnesium. But there are some people who have horrendous high levels, and they're the ones that need the medications.
Right.
That's the thing about medicine, is the drugs are there to be used, when necessary, but not for prevention. This my magnesium and my magnesium and migraine article that I just put out. They have new guidelines for the treatment of migraines. They give a list of 40 drugs that doctors can choose from.
Oh.
This is, I say, Lord, suffering cats.
Right.
How is it humanly possible to learn the efficacy, safety, side effects, and interactions of 40 drugs and know what to give the next patient that steps through your doors?
Right.
And
you can't. It's too.
Not.
I feel sad for doctors because they're trying to do the right thing. I don't blame doctors, I don't even know if I blame the pharmaceutical companies, but I kind of do. Um,
Mhm.
in this predicament, to be honest. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been fabulous. We couldn't cover everything, but we covered a lot. We covered a lot of grounds. We've been talking
Mhm.
to Dr. Carolyn Dean, the author of the Magnesium Miracle. Tell us again your blog, and I'd love to get pointers to some of these articles too that we'll actually post on the blog post. But where's your blog? How do we get to it?
Yes, it's just drcarolyndean.com.
Okay. Yeah,
drcarolyndean.com, and that's
DEAN, just like it sounds.com.
correct. And the free books, actually, I'll send them to you, and you can put them up for people to grab.
Thank you so much.
And
Yeah. God.
yeah, they were at rnareset.com, which is
Yeah.
where my Remag and the Relight are, and you can learn more about them on those sites.
Thank you so much. And thank you for being such an advocate. This is one of those,
Ah,
this is like an advocate for something that matters so much and that so few people know about, I think.
I know. It's kind of scary, and
Mm.
seriously, I I almost had a heart attack at this think tank, CJ. Seriously,
You mean about getting
there.
therapeutic?
Well, the researchers
Magnesium?
there, uh, some of them have written hundreds and even 1,000 papers.
Yeah.
And one person was saying, well, yeah, I only take my magnesium oxide every 2 days because it causes a laxative effect.
Oh.
And I mean, how can they sit there and not look for better sources?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's just boggling. So I just realized, well, that people aren't going to get the information from these folks. So I guess
Yeah.
I just better keep on my high horse, and I'll talk to CJ tomorrow, and I'll get it all off my chest.
Oh, good. I'm glad. Well, the Remag, is it for the Remag, which is the product? Am I pronouncing it correctly? Remag, the product that you
Correct.
create. So
Yeah.
it says that I can actually get 300 milligrams. So with a half a teaspoon twice a day. So
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I assume that this is better than the oxide. I mean, that's one of the best things aside from an IV, like you're saying. It sounds like
Right.
that's one at least a solution that you can have between now and when they get up. And the problem is I went and I was like, oh my gosh, it's $34. But how long does it last? This bottle of Remag?
Well, the 29, it's 29.99 for the 8 ounces. That's 48 teaspoons. So if a person is just taking a half a teaspoon twice a day, that's a month and a half.
Yeah. So it's
But the thing
expensive,
of it, it is, I mean, it is therapeutic. It is,
right?
the price for the manufacturer to make it for me is probably twice as much as some of your cheap magnesiums. But I, I guess my focus is more on complex people. And as you said in my book and under my resources, I talk about all the magnesiums.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not just saying
Yeah, yeah, you have
you have
natural
to.
calm and jigsaw magnesium, ancient minerals. You have
Mhm.
other ones out there. So but as you're saying, like, hey, if you think about the amount that you're paying for all the drugs that you're taking, I guess you can use it in
Mhm.
comparison to that going, yeah, that's not that much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And these days, doctors have to follow the HMO rules, and they'll make you
Yeah.
come in for your prescription renewal, which is a $50 copay.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So it's actually relatively cheap given and then given the efficacy, right? I mean, you're going to feel better. And it sounds like
Right,
faster because you'll have more of it absorbed and you won't have the laxative kind of effect, which is probably
right.
the thing that is the
Yeah.
impediment for most people. Thank you so much for being here. I learned so much. I feel excited.
I know you sound excited. That's
Yeah,
wonderful. I'm
you've
so
done your
glad.
job. Thank
Right,
you
right.
so much for your time. I appreciate it.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.